very important for us to use as much as possible that is biodegradable. And here in Cyprus, as you can see, these are bamboo cotton buds. Many things here now are not permitted to be made from plastic. We can no longer import plastic items or manufacture anything with plastic. Another good idea from doing this is that we can compost nearly everything that we have. So for example, kitchen rolls or toilet rolls, I just put in the compost like this hole and they create air gaps. The same with old paper. Obviously I check it's not glossy or the print, but I shred it by hand and add this to the compost as well. So as I say, do salt and check what your ink is, make sure there's no gum. And here you can see a pile of items that I could not use when I was selecting paper to use on the compost. So here is a video about compost. Compost is in essence simply just following nature's pattern, where leaves and stems are formed in the spring and naturally die back in the autumn, where they would naturally fall to the ground and eventually rot and then returning to the plant as nutrients. Compost is not difficult to make, and of course it's absolutely free. Everything I grow in, I do not have any soil. Everything I grow in is from my compost piles, and that is what I use to make soil. It should be fairly equally balanced with everything I add to my compost piles. Unless weeds that are in seed or diseased plants I use, compost should be safe to use as a soil conditioner and also as a mulch. Spent mushroom compost. This is often available locally from your mushroom farms. The spent compost is actually relatively cheap, especially if you purchase it in bulk. It's mainly used in the ornamental part of your garden, but it's still useful in your vegetable garden if you allow it to rot down. It's also useful if the soil is on acid side because it does contain chalk. You may also be able to use vegetable industrial waste. Several industries produce organic waste material that can be useful in the garden. Spent hot waste from the brewing industry has also been a favourite amongst people who can obtain it. The cocoa shells are now imported, although these are better used as a mulch than as a soil conditioner. Also, you may find several other projects locally available, but do make sure you let them rot well before using them. Of course, most of you will know about green manure. Some crops can be grown simply to be dug back into the ground to improve the soil condition and to add nutrients. Some people call this drop. They're particularly useful if you've got light soils that are left vacant for any length of time, such as over winter. Green manure can be sown in early autumn and dug in during the spring. Alternatively, if you plant fast-growing varieties, you can use them whenever land becomes available during the growing season. But do avoid letting the green manure flower and seed, otherwise, of course, it will self-seed. Most of the foliage and the stems can be used in the compost bin. Green manure can be grown either as a separate crop or it can be grown between existing crops if you're limited on space. So, example, clover can be grown amongst cabbages, where it not only fixes nitrogen in the soil, but also it provides a ground cover which will keep your weeds down. Other types of things you can use as green manure are broad beans, fava beans, which are nitrogen fixing. You can use Italian ryegrass, that is quick growing. You can use lupins, which again is nitrogen fixing. Mustard, this is quick growing. Red clover, which is nitrogen fixing, or winter tile, which again is nitrogen fixing. The main idea of compost making is to emulate the process in which a plant takes nutrients from the soil, dries and then rots, putting the nutrients back. The easiest way to make compost, and without any special requirements or skills or time, is to basically put all your cuttings or your dried leaves, straw, grass clippings, old paper, whatever you have, into a pile. Now you can start sowing seeds directly into this, and this is a very beginner way of creating a Hugelkulture bed to grow in, which will protect your crops from cold and frost, and also from heat, and also when you have times with lack of water. If you decide to make an actual compost bin, the easiest way being to use pallet wood on 3 sides. Do make sure your compost area is aerated from below. So even a few slats of wood on the bottom or another pallet wood laid on the bottom will be best. Compost bins should be aerated from the bottom and at least 2 or 3 sides for it to be made quicker. Of course, people often water them, but this is not necessary. It will just take more time for the materials to break down. And many people with small gardens feel they don't have room for a compost bin. Well, if you make it, as I've just said, you can actually throw seeds in the top, which should germinate if you do water it, and particularly melons or watermelons or tomatoes are a good way that you can grow in the top, so you're space saving whilst making compost. But as I say, if you've got a bigger garden, you can just make lots of different heaps of compost piles all over your garden and grow in them, and these become the start of one form of hugelkulture. And then, of course, to that, you can keep adding to it, throwing on your grass cuttings or your dried leaves. Some people call this lasagna farming or lasagna beds. And this is basically growing your different layers of green, brown, fresh and dried material. Because it is in a heat, the rotting material generates heat, which encourages it to break down even more quickly. You can, of course, keep turning it over. It's not necessary, but it will make it break down more evenly. The heat also helps to kill pest and disease, as well as any weed seed in the compost. If the rotting material is to break down properly, a certain amount of moisture is needed, as well as air, as I've already said. But if there's too much water, the process will actually be slowed down. If there's insufficient air, the heat will go slimy and smell bad. Process normally takes up to about 3 months. Of course, as I've said, if you want to grow your marrows, courgettes, zucchinis or something on top of it, you will leave it for longer so they can mature. But of course, that is not a bad thing. How many compost areas do you need? Well, that depends on many things, such as I live on a mountainside and have no soil at all. So more is better for me. It's up to you how much space you've got and how many things you want to grow. Just start with a couple, and then if you feel you need more, you can always add to the area, or indeed another area later. So if you have a large bit of land, you want compost areas in different areas, save you moving around the garden. When I make my compost bins, as I say, I normally put a few wooden slats, or at the bottom I put another pallet wood, but you can also then add some big branches or big twig material on the bottom, which also keeps the area aerated. Don't put in large areas of one material at a time. If you only have one type of material at a time, either space that over several bins or keep it aside to add at another time. If you feel you need to add heat to keep it warm and start the breakdown occurring, then you can cover it with an old carpet or a sheet of plastic. This also prevents excess water coming in if you are in an area with heavy rain. Some gardeners, when it's available, every so often like to add a layer of farmyard manure, because this can provide extra nitrogen and also helps to speed things up. It's not necessary, but that is up to you and if available. It just means waiting a couple of weeks longer for your compost if you don't add it. I will be doing a separate video showing you all the different things you can use, many of which you may not be aware of, and also listing things definitely never to use that some videos out there put in your can use list and the reasons why. So look out for that as well. And as I said at the beginning of this video, it's always a good idea to put aeration through each layer. So that's why I use the toilet rolls or the kitchen rolls, because as you build up layers or throw more things onto your pile, you want the air circulating, which is how my compost becomes compost much quicker. So find different ways. Some people like to put let's say a plastic pipe in, like a drain pipe in, push down vertically from the top down to the bottom, which helps as well. But you want air of different layers and levels. So the easiest way is the kitchen roll or the toilet rolls. If you enjoyed this first episode of Compost, then do like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your gardening friends. I'm a great lover of Hugelkulture, which you will see more in that series of well. So until my next episode, thank you for watching. You're much appreciated. And until next time, Miraculous.